everyone. I'm Jason Schwartz, your host. We're now Monday at 11, and it is the Neutral Zone. Well, hello. I'm taking these headphones off. We don't need them. How are you? It's December of 2024. Man, this year ran away. I wasn't on last week, and wasn't on the week before. One was a holiday, and one was a major thing here. There's been, I want to call it an attack, but let's just say when you lose all the cable customers in the west side of Maui, like happened in August of 2023, your next budget as a local TV station that's getting 3% of the revenue coming in from that stream of customers, you're going to be impacted. Well, they found out they're going to be impacted better than $100,000. And while looking up there, they discovered, wait a minute, there's a hearing coming up soon. Before they had 7. What is it now? Spectrum Cable bought from Oceanic Time Warner Cable, but they sort of been running, but they haven't got the approval for the next number of years. So they're trying to do it and take $250,000 plus out of the money from Akaku. Meanwhile, remember, around the country, they get as much as 5% of cable bills. But here they got 3. Now they're trying to take money, like 20% of the budget. So they closed this place down, and a bunch of people filled the room at the college, and we had people from the DCCA, and we gave them our truth, that Akaku is a very important and powerful, because it's the only local TV station that's responsive and can give you the news. Like the New York Times said, we fit everything that prints. All the news that's fit to print. Akaku doesn't shade and shave. They have a real honest and forthright, like me. I'm not paid. I'm here doing this because all these years everyone said to me, God, you must have been doing it all this time. How many houses you buying? Nope, this is because I care. And you've seen me run for politics, all that stuff. But this one's important. So I want to give you a phone number, 808. It'll be up on screen for when this is simulcast on Akaku, Channel 55. We're on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. And we're also found on the web at MauiNeutralZone.com. If you go to YouTube and you go to Dream Maui and the number 1, you'll find this show and a number of shows. But Dream Maui 01234 is all us. And those of you who know our nonprofit, Maui Arts and Music Association, all of it is under DreamMaui.com. So you can look at our shows from the past and you can propose shows for the future. In fact, that's how I got today's guest who's here. This is Sid Alpert. You're going to find him very interesting. I'm just going to report a couple of things, like the governor's phone number, 808-586-0034. 586-0034. Cable TV at dcca.hawaii.gov. If you want to send a letter about this Akaku and give them your opinion. And now is good. They're going to be making their determinations imminently. We hope they weren't pre-done, sort of like we see sometimes at the council meetings. So that's another story. Anyway, very important, 586-0034. Tell them you don't want to take any more money from Akaku. In fact, you'd like to give them more. That's up to you. At the library, coming up the 18th, in Makawao, 5:30 to 6:30, there is, let's see if I'll read it correctly. I think I will. Vampires.
Whoa.
Ooh. There's going to be a presentation from Barry Wurst, who also, we've seen Barry here. He does reviews of films. They're talking about Dracula. Barry is amazing. That's how he started all his stuff, was when he was doing the horror stuff. He's a good guy. 5:30 on the 18th. That's a couple of days from now, 5:30 to 6:30. And then also Santa. Santa's going to probably watch that, but he'll be on the 20th from noon till 3 o'clock, where you can come to the Makawao Library and visit Santa. He has I don't know if he has a Maserati, but when he's here, he doesn't use quite the heavy getup. You might see him lighter dress. But Santa will be from 12 to 3 in Makawao Library on the 20th. All right. And I was going to just mention these stories because on a national level, that's a whole thing. I'm sure we can't get away from that one. But slow progress ahead for Maui's county with tourism lagging is a worthwhile. Go to Maui now and read that story. That'll put hair on your chest, as they say, or if you're not so inclined. We have a long drive and way back, and we have ideas. A lot of us have ideas to make things happen without even people coming here yet. So that's the story. Revocable permit granted, revocable, for East Maui stream water being diverted to Maui. They're not Maui, they're Maui Pono, and they've got 10,300 acres, and we know they're growing crops, and there's a lot of issues about granting something permanently as things are changing, and there's light. That's a good story. Those are important to see. I only did that because we're kind of catching up for a couple of weeks. You might have seen me bring my other guy, my co-host Scott Bushnell, who comes from a different slant, and so he likes to think it's Buckley and Vidal talking here. So I don't know if that's it, but and some people don't know who Buckley and Vidal. If you're old enough to know who William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal are, those were way back in the 80s, that last century. I know I don't look that old, but I'm ancient history almost.
That's so funny. I sailed with Buckley's skipper on the boat he wrote the book about, Celestial.
Let's begin. That's an interesting question. I have Sid Alpert in front of me, and if I met Sid because I asked a friend, if you ever know anyone, he said, I know a guy who's interesting, who's in the art business, and we're going to, I like to say, this is a flower that's blooming in front of me here. Sid Alpert, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I know that in 2024, you've probably been here a long time. How do you get to Maui?
Well, it's interesting. I'm writing a book now, and the first thing in the book, I say, Maui's a great place to come after a riot. I did it twice. The first time I was teaching at Ohio State, and people don't know this, most people don't, but the riots at Kent State, what happened and the tragic ending there, really started at Ohio State. Ohio State had a student strike, but it was all about just hiring and firing teachers on campus, and rather than a state house. And the government totally overreacted. They brought in, eventually the National Guard. But they closed. The students closed one gate of 21 to the university, and just as a symbolic gesture. And all of a sudden, it was riot police and everything, shooting tear gas. And what happened at Kent State, it was a sympathy strike for what happened. And then it escalated to get out of Cambodia. And, it got really crazy, as we know. But that drove me. My buddy was tripping around Asia, living on the beach in Goa. And he sent me a aerogram and basically said, let's buy a sailboat, And we did. It all happened. It's an amazing story. But we sailed to Maui. We got here in 71. We bought the boat in Oahu. And we subsequently, that was the first boat in Maui Classic Charters, my partner Peter Jones and I. Wow. And, I've crossed the ocean 14 times on sailboats. I've done all these amazing things in the sailing industry. The last 31 years, I've been in the art business. I came back to Maui. Why? Because of the Rodney King riots. I was in the entertainment biz. I was director of ops of the largest entertainment laser company in the world. And we were tripping around the world with Pink Floyd, Michael Jackson, George Michael, Paul McCartney. I could go on for half an hour, really.
Oh, you were doing the laser light shows
we were
for
doing,
all the
exactly.
top rock and whatever.
Yeah, and special effects and film and some. I got to meet Neil Armstrong. I did a corporate show for National Aeronautics and Space Workers Union.
If you had said Quincy Jones, I mean, when I think of different worlds, I think of the music business. But Neil Armstrong, you've been, wow, you've had a full life.
I actually have a photo he gave me of the whole Hawaiian island chain taken from outer space, from Midway to the Big Island. And the punchline when I tell the story, and there's a whole lot to the story, but I'm not going to. But the punchline is I never asked them to sign it. And the reason is, I was in a, if I asked Michael Jackson to sign my tour jacket, he certainly would have. But the next day I'd get a call, hey, you're off the tour. It's just not protocol. So, but, you know, Neil would have done it. And I always tell the story because I have it framed now over my computer up on the wall.
Well, I have over my wall his First Step for Mankind. You remember an artist out there named Davo?
I'm friends with Davo. I worked in
Davo's
the same gallery.
Piece, or one of them, piece of Neil Armstrong stepping down onto the moon, I have on my wall.
I'll tell you a very interesting thing I will tell you that I shared with Neil. So at first, it was Mr. Armstrong, and I shared with him how I was on a fellowship at Ohio State through National Defense for NASA, and I was gearing my life towards working for NASA, design space capsules and so forth. I had an undergraduate degree in architecture, and I just kind of. But when I did this thing, and this was way back in the '80s with Neil. After we got familiar, started out as Mr. Armstrong, and eventually I was calling him Neil. He's calling me Sid. I said, "Hey Neil, I have proof you were on the moon." And he says, "I know I was on the moon." I said, "Yeah, I know you know, but you know how those idiots who..." And he stopped me. He didn't even. He says, "Yeah, well, they're idiots," and he was actually starting to get a little annoyed. But I said, "Yeah, but I have the proof." He said, "Okay, what's the proof?" I said, "Well, when you stepped on the moon, you were supposed to say one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind, but you kind of muffed your line." He says, "I've heard that from people every day since."
Really?
So I said, he says, "Well, what's the proof? Get to the proof." So I said, "Well, look, I've done a lot of video production in my life, and if you guys were faking it on a soundstage, they would have shot it again so you could get your line right." He goes, "I'm going to use that. Come here." And he walks me over to this little file cabinet, and that's when he said, "Pick one," and that's when I picked the photo from outer space.
Oh, funny.
Yeah.
Neil Armstrong. He passed away recently.
He's gone.
He's done. That means all of us are going someday. We all have a checkout time, but we don't know what it is.
I have a theory that I share quite regularly.
Please.
Everybody born after Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon is a new species, Homo technicus. I'm old species. I use all the stuff. I got this thing here,
You use it.
But I'm not hardwired for it like these kids, It's like...
I know, they're born with it.
Yeah. A thing I used to do, and the first time I did it was at the old Lahaina Coolers, which is no longer
there.
Yeah,
on Dickinson.
I'd walk in there.
Which is no longer. Is Dickinson back?
Well, the street's there, the pavement, but nothing else.
And the church across the corner.
Yeah, that's there. The church survived.
The church made it.
Heart to Heart filmed an episode in that church a long time ago.
Stephanie Powers, I have a story of her when we were living in Laurel Canyon. William Holden was with Stephanie Powers next door to this gal I met who wrote the theme for Beretta. See, when you live in Los Angeles, amazing. Yeah. Morgan Ames.
So I walked into Lahaina Coolers, and everybody's at the bar texting, right? So I just went like this. I held it up. I said, "You see this?" And everybody looked up. I went, "Worse than heroin." And someone invariably would always, when I do this was the first time, they said, "Why is that?" And I said, "Because you can quit heroin. We're stuck with this."
Were you above the bar from your gallery?
I'm sorry?
Were you above the bar like at Moose's? Oh, but you had a gallery that you were running, right?
The last gallery I worked in was Hart International Galleries. I was there for 17 years.
Well, they were more than a local artist gallery. They were a global artist showcase, I remember.
Yeah, and we also had the exclusive rights to Sir Anthony Hopkins' work. Actually, in December, after the fire, my last hurrah with Hart, we did a show for Anthony Hopkins in Vegas and at the Wynn, and it was crazy successful. And I've just been spending the money I made, and I've been trying to piece together the future. I am now actually involved with the Sheraton. They're producing this Meet the Artist format event for the next 4 months. A bunch of local artists who were really
impacted.
Thank you. That's the perfect word. Impacted, and not positively.
No.
By what happened here. The fire. all these people from my life who I knew from sailing boats years ago, from doing the lasers years ago, that I haven't talked to some of them in 20-something years. I would, some way they found me, I'd get texts, I'd get emails, some phone calls, and they'd go, Sid, what the hell's going on there, you know? And I always had the same line. I'd say, you know, it's like, now we sold Salvador Dali's artwork. I'd say, it's like living in a Salvador Dali painting that he did on LSD. Because it was so surreal. You know, I live 3 miles from the fire. My house, I have a beautiful architect-designed home. It's fine. And sitting where I am, looking out at Lanai, looking out at Molokai, you'd never know anything happened now. You know, boats out there, you know, and 3 miles away, it's, you know, it's hellfire.
I was sitting at the Dunes golf course on the other side.
There you go.
The next day looking back at the beautiful hill, knowing that right over that hill, this major fire was going on.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but people that aren't from here don't really, in my opinion, I have my opinions, don't realize.
I have my own theories on everything.
There we go. The whole island's been impacted. When they talk about tourism, is the economy lagging? Maui, he's here. He's 3 miles. Everything's normal. You don't even know anything's different. Something's different. We're not getting the guests going through. We're hearing stories that people say, oh, they told us not to come. We all hear those kinds of stories. But all of you out there that are on Maui, bless you. Well, and, you know, if you're homeless and in the fire zone or out of the fire zone, now we have classes of homelessness here.
You know, it's really interesting. I meet people, visitors now. I'll be sitting in a bar or wherever, and, hey, where you visiting? You know?
Yeah.
And I say to them, so you've been here before? And if they say no, I say, so you've never seen Lahaina? They go, no, we've never seen it. And it's a weird thing because it's kind of like, we were just talking about this before the show, but it's kind of like trying to explain the 60s to people who are, you know, 20 years old today. And, you know, I try, it's, you just can't explain. I sailed my schooner into that harbor. Actually, it's funny because Dave Hudson, who later created Finest Kind charter business, and he was the harbor master. We laugh about it still, you know. He was the harbor master. Dave's quite a guy. In the last year or so, he sailed a boat down to Tahiti and Marquesas and back. He's 80. He's 83 now, I think. You know, I have a lot of respect for Dave Hudson. But you know, the people that I meet are tourists that have been here before and seen Lahaina. It's a different conversation.
Oh yeah. I got here in '88, and I told you I lived in the house that Chris Lassen just moved out. It was like he suddenly had a break, and he was moving out of the poor side of Front Street.
You're not talking about
1414 Front
by
Street.
Shark Pit?
No, it was down the street from the Chart House on the corner.
Oh, that way.
I was a bunch.
Oh, sure.
And he was, I mean, we're talking about a little house. I had this little single that I am sure, I don't want to say illegal rental, but I don't know anything from now. It was a beautiful little
but those
thing.
days
and
were
I
different.
shared it with a beautiful lady. We shared the shower. Now, that was a great thing.
Yeah, right. Those days
Just
were
came
different
over
because
from the
I tried to
mainland.
explain that when I got here. I tried to explain it, and I say this, people don't believe it, but I think you know, if we could go back in the time machine, we could verify. You could walk down the center line of Front Street in the middle of the day with a beer in one hand and a joint in the other hand, and walk up to a cop and say, "Can you give me a light?" And he'd light you up, and he could care less. We were living in the lost continent of Lemuria. You know, that's what we called it. And the other thing is, we would have parties. You know, we'd go to a party in McKenna or Haiku or Hana. It didn't matter where. It was always the same 200 people. It was this tribal thing, you know. And look, Maui's still an amazing place. You know, it's beautiful.
Yes, it is.
But it's a different place. Now the biggest change that's happened to this island, when I got here, I'll never forget this. I lived, had my boat in the harbor, but I lived way up in Olinda, way up top of Piholo Road. Piholo, thank you.
Yeah.
And we drive down, and some guy put a fence post in the ground, and he put it wasn't even a rectangular piece of wood. It was a ripped out piece of wood. He nailed it on and slashed with a paintbrush. 14 acres, $4,800 or something. You know, basically land up there was going for $200-300 an acre for the most, and now it's $500,000. And is it that much better now? It was better then. So, you know, Maui's gone through changes, but and the thing that now I'm focused on is how this fire has affected the art business. And
see, we should have been talking long before, because when we speak, maybe Maui Arts and Music Association is to promote art, music, and culture, and educate people about this stuff, and bring in money for environmental solutions to be a self-sustainability model. Sounds like we artists could lead and generate the whole world to be supporting art and all that's going on to rebuild Maui. Yeah. You know what I mean? And here you're doing it with one hotel. Can you imagine it? I remember 93. You just came back here in 93?
Yeah, I moved back.
The second riot. I was from LA.
January 1st, 93. I kissed the tarmac when I got off the plane.
I bet. You know, when I got here, I came in 87 to visit my ex-wife. And as I got off the plane, I said, I wonder what it was like to be mayor. I don't know why I thought of that. Way back.
I thought about it.
Yeah. Ran for mayor in 94 as the Green Party.
You did?
Guy.
Oh, yeah.
I was the Green Party guy. So I was 92, living in Lahaina. I loved Lahaina. Lahaina, you know, it's hard to describe. It is indescribable. You can't take a whole city and, I don't want to say crush, condense it down into an area that is so full of life. And like you say, Front Street and the whole thing was much quieter.
Okay.
But it was just a unique experience.
I got to preface the next thing I'm going to say with something one of my best clients, who manufactures all the bottling equipment for Coca-Cola, told me in the gallery once. And this guy was in the CIA. I call him up, and he goes, Sid, let me call you back on a secure line. That's how he is. So he was in the gallery once, and we're standing there, and someone started talking politics. And he like puts his arm around my shoulders and manhandles me away. And I was in my 60s then, and he was quite a bit older. He's like 83 now. And he just says to me, and he enunciates every word by poking me in the chest almost, you know. He goes, Sid, never mix politics with anything but drinking or fighting. But now that I've said that, you know, the whole concept of ever seeing an art scene on Front Street again, you know, and I'm going to share with my vision, and it's probably going to take someone like BlackRock or Elon Musk, or someone who says, here's the money, just do it, you know. But the problem is, and I have a degree in architecture, and Lahaina was designed as an 1800s city, you know, town.
Yeah.
And to rebuild that and try to recoup what it would cost to do. But my alternative is, I know a lot of the local energy, and they want to turn it into a memorial park. And, you know, and I'm not going to argue for or against that. I do think that, I don't think they'll ever let them build commercial buildings on the water side. It seems to be what I envision is, here's the thing, we have a chicken and egg problem. We have the tourism's way down, and there's nothing for them to come to on the west side like there used to be, like Lahaina, which had the art galleries, the restaurants. So why not build a facility, architect designed, beautiful facility overlooking, where way up above the burn center, above all that, you know, with all people could look from the center out the window down to Molokai and Lanai, and, you know, see the memorial park, and if that's what it is, and have their galleries and restaurants and entertainment centers, all kinds of, you know, and just have it and a destination place, so that would draw people that come back because
Could we call it Disneyland? Because it would have to be built, like you say, above, but it's designed to be
just take a
like going to Monticello in New York or Mount Vernon in Washington.
Restaurants,
yeah, the whole thing.
art galleries, entertainment.
What about a dome over the whole thing? Well, I've got some unusual ideas too. Well, the truth is, we have who created this open space? That's another whole conversation of what started the fire and kept it going. It is extraordinary. This fire, if you say wildfire, some people jump through the roof. And if you say it was a laser, people jump the other way. And
I'm a laser tech. It wasn't a laser. Let me just tell you. But first of all, it's a paranoid. It's ridiculous. I can tell you what burned Lahaina down. I heard it from one of the firefighters that was there. And the real truth is, of course the electric company has some liability, but it really was an act of God. And there were some very bad decisions made. I'll tell you something where I got personal information from a firefighter. So I had a friend who lived on Luakini. He lost his house. He lost a few friends in the fire. And I heard just shortly after, he's handing out free food, working, across from what was the health food store, which unfortunately closed down, not because of the fire, but
you're talking right there in town, then
in Hanakawai.
Yeah.
And he was working there, and I heard that, and I went to see him. I said, "Hey, Don, I'm putting you up for sainthood," because here he was. He lost everything. He was an artist. He lost all his art. He lost his house. And yet he says, "Sid, I'm fine, but look at that guy." And there's a guy sitting there. He's not dressed bad. He doesn't look homeless, but he's got a look on his face like he lost his whole family, right? So we walk over to him. How you doing okay, man? He says, "Not really." So his story is he was a firefighter. And he says he was at the Christian school, which was the first fire, he says, the first fire that was reported that the fire department went to put out that day.
Where's the Christian school, roughly?
It's either up Lahaina Luna or up the street next to it, up Dickinson, but way up.
Gotcha.
And
the one right at the highway?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I couldn't tell you. I'm just telling you a story.
I'm listening. I'm sorry.
And it's affiliated with a church, but it's a Christian school. Mm-hmm. And they went. Is blowing like 70-knot gusts, but they hadn't had a fire yet. And I don't know if it was electric line that started it. I don't know. That's not the point. But they put it out, and then the guy in charge, whether he was the chief or the lieutenant or whatever, said, "Okay, wrap it up. We're leaving." And one of the guys that was there fighting the fire says, "Don't you think someone ought to keep an eye on it? It's blowing 70 knots." And he gets an answer like,
"Get in the truck."
Yeah, like, what are you in charge now? And the guy we're talking to who was there, he's not the one who said that, but he says, I made a commitment right there and then. I'm going back. I'm getting off shift, and I'm going back in my own car, and I'm going to keep an eye on the fire, keep an eye and see if it's. But he ended up going drinking with his buddies, and he was feeling so guilty because he's convinced that fire flared up, and it took, he says, 8 minutes to go half a mile down to Lahaina. So, there were a lot of bad decisions made, turning off the water. Hey, we have a guy, what's his name, Bosco, who worked in our gallery. He's an ex-staff sergeant in the military. And he would do our maintenance and framing and crating, all kinds of stuff. And he was there when the fire broke out, and he tried with it, and then he realized we're all going to die if we don't get out of here. And I got in their car, and he got to the end of front, and a cop was stopping him, saying, "You can't go through here because power lines are down." And being the balls of the wall kind of guy he was, he just basically gave the cop the finger and drove around the barricade, and he's still alive. There are people who burned up in their cars because
because the police wouldn't let them through.
Yeah, the left hand didn't know what the right hand didn't know what was going. It was just so it was a lot of fault.
We're going to continue in a second. This is Jason Schwartz with Sid Alpert, KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. We are at the neutral zone. Continue. You know, like the stories of that. Number 100 or 99 was my friend Michael, who was the cobbler in the Wharf Cinema Center. Michael.
I'd see Michael at the Amigos all the time. His shop, he could watch his shop. He sat at the bar all day, and Michael had some stories.
And he died. You know that.
I know. I lost 4 friends in the fire. So.
He's the one that put me in touch with the architect in Japan way back when I formed my nonprofit in 1991. A solar architect in Japan.
Oh, wow.
See, there's such history that people don't know here.
Did you know Michael used to chauffeur, I'm not going to remember who now, a real super famous rock star?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Guy with a beard like him?
Well, I don't know. This is a long time ago. I don't know if he had the beard.
Yeah, he always seemed
He had the sandal shop right there.
Yeah. Michael Smith.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he was an interesting guy. And a nice
he had
guy.
some interesting things in his little enclosure there. Things from all kinds of one-off art things. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about just every, when you're talking, when I heard your name in art, I was thinking, someone who'll understand the gallery without walls. Way back when, no one ever bought anything from my online gallery. I was just starting, didn't know. The IRS liked it. They ordered me twice.
Oh, my God.
So I knew it was a good idea. So it's still a good idea. So we should talk offline. And you guys will be listening in. How did you get into, were you in the art business?
Well,
I mean, you were in laser, you were here?
The only thing I ever did in the art business before I moved back to Maui when I was in Santa Monica, I hooked up with this group, the Moscow Art Gallery in Toronto, I think it was, and don't quote me because I'm not.
Right.
It's a long time ago in a galaxy far away, but it's when the Soviet Union first opened up, and all of a sudden they were sending art supplies to artists in Russia. There are some amazing artists in Russia, some we've never heard of, that have already died, never. But they were doing shows in trying to promote. So they had me because I was in the laser business and I was doing all these venues in the Hollywood area, and I knew I was hanging out with the jet setters. So, I was finding venues for them to do these shows, and that was it. That was my whole involvement. But then I moved to Maui, and
Maui Youth Ambassadors, were you involved with that when they gone to Moscow?
No, not at all.
Before this is up?
Not at all.
Yeah,
no.
Okay.
I mean, I shared pretty much my whole relationship in the art. But I got my degree in architecture. I can certainly paint, but I wasn't an artist.
Right.
But when I got to Maui, and what I was doing was basically I was living on, my friend invited me on his property up in Olinda, cutting the protea, bringing it down to Lahaina, selling bouquets for like $5. And I'd walk down the street, flowers from outer space, because no one ever saw these things,
I understand.
And anyway, I went to a show at the Hyatt, and it was a show. This artist David Lee.
David Lee.
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, I'm going.
And I'm just looking at it. It was kind of impressive, and I had a real bent towards Asian philosophies and stuff. See, I'm wearing a Buddha. My wife's Japanese. And,
okay.
This is actually a 400-year-old Tibetan Buddha given to me by a very special Tibetan girl. But wow. And I'm just admiring the art, and this slight, Chinese gentleman walks up to me, and we start having this conversation, not necessarily about the art, but it got very deep, and then I realized this is someone I want to know. I said, "Hey, I'm Sid Alpert." I'm Sid Alpert, and he said, "Hold on, I have a phone call." No, he said, and he just goes, "I'm David Lee." That's how he talked. I couldn't believe I'm talking to the artist for 15 minutes. I didn't
have any
never
idea.
Never said a word. And then he said, "You should come work for me," Then I ended up. I mean, it's a long, really crazy story. But then
you did.
I did, and we had our first gallery on Front Street. Now David had been in galleries.
Yeah.
He was had been in Center Art Gallery and
Oh, here you
and
mean?
no,
Center Art Gallery in New York.
in Oahu.
Oh, okay.
And you know, he was selling his paintings on the zoo fence in the '60s. He came over from China and born in Canton, but then Hong Kong. And you know, and look, just to share, if you know who David Lee is,
Yeah.
all the phone numbers I have for him in Hong Kong. The funniest thing is his lawyer, who you know, in Oahu, has no idea what happened to him. I know that he moved back to China. He moved to Hong Kong, and my theory is, this is a joke, really, because it has nothing to, but just knowing David, he opened his mouth to the Chinese communists, and they locked him up, you know, because it's not like living in Maui. And but I worked for Dave for years, tripped all over the world with him, and did a show for the Sultan of Brunei in Brunei for the royal family. Yeah, I mean, I got such amazing stories, you know. I mean, I'm writing a book, but they're amazing experiences. We did shows in Singapore. We did, but mostly in the United States. And
So did you hook up with a show producer and did lights, or you pretty well ran a whole show?
No, we produced our own events, but we hired. One of the things
Yeah.
I ended up doing, my architecture background, we would hire whatever city we go to. We go to Chicago, we'd hire a company, Walls and Lights, and you know, they'd set it up for us, and we rent it, and it would cost us. It's funny because I was telling the story, and I said it would cost us like, you know, $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 for the weekend, and someone says to me, $40,000 today, man. You know. But I ended up designing.
80,000
I designed
today.
a system.
100,000 today.
Yeah, I designed a system of traveling, you know, break down walls. I really had it built in L.A. Aluminum with fabric on it, and they all interconnected. You only had to plug in the last one. It was all electrically connected. And you know, David left them in a storage unit that got seized or something when he left here. I wish I had them, because very valuable today. And
Instant gallery.
yeah, right.
Pop-up.
No, at Hart International, we built, Glenn, the owner, he built his own walls and lights and everything, but they're really crude. They look great, but they're heavy, and you had to plug each light. You know, it's a lot
When you
more
look behind the
complicated.
wall, you see.
Yeah,
on
no,
top
no,
of it.
right. Pay no attention to the fool behind the
That's right.
curtain.
That is. I knew that Wizard of Oz would come in. Well, you know, I'm having a lot of fun, which is great. But you've been, I mean, when I think of the art business in Lahaina and seeing where we are now, it's like, we were like, what is it, third or sixth largest art market in the world?
Well, you know, yeah. I mean, per capita.
Yeah.
It was one of the largest in the world per capita. But, you know, in terms of the amount of art sold, I mean, you can't, you know, really truthfully, just honest engine. You can't compare it to New York or, you know, I mean, you know, or Paris.
But it was a great story.
But
I've
no,
heard all
but the
these
thing
years.
about Front Street. Okay. So Glenn Hart, who owned the gallery, at one point, some years before I left, before the fire, he had a dinner for all of us, and he says, we go to Oahu. We're taking over all of Chris Lassen's galleries in Oahu. We're taking one at the Royal, Major Hotel on the
Here?
street. No, in Oahu.
Royal
Major
Hawaiian.
Hotel, Royal Hawaiian. All of a sudden, we're going to have 3 galleries in Oahu. And I remember I stood up and I said, I made a toast. I said, well, Glenn, either you have a lot more money than I thought you did, or you're smoking more pot than me. But and years later, he says, God, man, that was a mistake. You know, it worked kind of because we had the ferry then, and we could fill up a truck full of art, and just for the cost of taking the ferry,
Right.
You know. But then when the ferry stopped,
Transportation.
it was a nightmare. So it just, and there's no center to the art scene in Oahu. It's kind of like Vegas. Now, you know, the owner of the gallery I'm talking about, he's based in Vegas. He's
Now.
there back, he moved back. And the thing is, he explained this to me. There's like 53 different art scenes in Vegas because it's 53 hotel. You know, people shop for art in the hotel they're staying in, typically, with exceptions. But it's not like, you know, hey, we did a show once with David Lee at the Forum Shops and Chris Lassen's gallery at the Forum Shops. And it's unbelievable, the amount of people walking through that. It's like a sea of people, you know. But they're individual places, you know, for art, and the space is really expensive. So, yeah.
You see, that was my idea years ago. Brand Maui Art and Music Association, MAMA. Around the world, everybody knows MAMA. And
Mamma Mia.
well, it's so funny, you know. It's like here we are. I don't know how many years later. 30 years? I think it's more than 30, a few. But these ideas, it's not like they're recycling them. They never had a chance to grow because they, in my example, they were repressed because of the local political scene.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one of the things I did, the last thing because there are limitations. And we had thousands and thousands and thousands of clients. We had a newsletter.
Yeah.
But what I was reaching out to, I created an app. I spent a year and a half doing it. And then we never got to market it because of the fact.
Yeah.
But where we would, and I would do it myself, except I don't have the money. It's expensive, you know, Glenn was buying masterworks, Rembrandt, Picasso, had good sources, totally authenticated, you know.
Hey, Elon Musk, you give $250 million to Trump. We don't need that much.
No.
And you can make money here again.
No, what are they saying he's threatening to buy now? The MSNBC.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What are we doing, world?
Well,
excuse
I
me.
think it'd be a good
We
thing.
got another guy here, the Google guy, lives in West Maui.
Yeah, sure. No, not Google guy. The Amazon.
Well, Bezos, he's down in past McKenna.
Who's the Google guy?
There's a guy that, one of the owners of Google, Larry Page.
Okay,
and the other guy, I forgot his name.
I have to Google him.
Yeah, you'll see. He lives in West Maui. You know, drop in the bucket. These are the guys that could help make giant change happen. We'll put their name right on the top. Lahaina Dash. We'll give you a big credit.
See, I was sure that Bezos, when he moved over here, I made a prediction. I have one nickname, Sid Stradamus, right? So I made a prediction that he's going to buy the Maui News, just like he bought the Washington Post, you know, because he wants to talk himself up. You know, he would, you know.
That's not a bad thought.
I was shocked to see that the Maui News is once a week publication and it's $3 now.
It's a sad state of affairs.
No, I mean, it is. But the thing is, no one reads the paper anymore. You know, we're living in this.
You go online, you watch 5 stories. Wait, you're not a subscriber. I know.
No. Hey, you know what's amazing about this thing? I get 150 emails every day, and there's only 3 that I really want to see. You know. And people are telling me now there's these ways you can do. You can screen out everything you don't want. But
the new Apple operating system, it's primary, transactions. They're starting to do the sorting on the way in now into different. So it's happening.
Yeah. Now I text. When I communicate with my friends, I just text. Because I'm not yet getting any texts from people I don't know. Not yet. You know, I'm not really.
I do.
Yeah, do you really? Yeah.
Well, you know, my number is nice and round. I had a guy that went to New York with some bogus check, and he got into jail. They thought he was a terrorist because he had an $80,000 fake check that someone had given him, you know, things that were here. And then he remembered my number and called me, and I called people to help bail him out of jail. So there was an artist, by the way, another artist. You know, a guy named Sabo, a local artist.
No, Davo I know real well, but
Davo.
Sabo I don't know.
Yeah. Davo's a good friend. He's a beautiful guy. You know, I almost thought we should have a 6-hour show. Maybe you want to come. You'll be my new co-host.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I was going to ask you. I should really ask you after the show, but you know, Tara Alexandro, she's an artist.
Yeah?
Taryn. And she is one of the principals, her and this lady Jessica, and I'm embarrassed, I don't remember her last name, Martyrdom or something. I'm getting it wrong. but they're the ones who are doing this thing at the Sheraton, and they would love to come here and talk to you.
Great. Love to talk to them.
Yeah, I just wanted to say so that I don't get beat up when I go see them. I'm working with two artists at the Sheraton. One is Rascal, who look, the guy's got an amazing history. He designed a watch for Swatch back in 1998 called Moonchild, and it was about the fastest selling Swatch watch ever. I'm actually going to start negotiating with Swatch to let him do another one. He was in our gallery in Hart Galleries, and he was selling 20 originals a month.
Wow.
And look, Rascal, this guy is perseverance personified. 2 days before the fire, he had a quadruple bypass at the hospital. Emergency. Had no idea he had any. And he says to me, Sid, if he was feeling short of wind, so he went to the doctor. They says, we got to get you to the hospital. So he would have never made it out of the fire. And then 2 days later, his place burns down.
They go.
And the gallery's gone, and yet he's painting again, and he's so we're doing this thing at the Hyatt. The other artist
Great.
I'm working with, James Nopal, who is you said you knew, right? James Nopal.
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought that was you before. No. Oh, that was the gentleman.
Oh, see,
that I was talking
we're
to.
a small group here, but that's
right.
good.
But
James Nopal.
Yeah, and he's here's a guy who's just got the chops. Now, Rascal was a street artist in New York, and he was tagging buildings, and he kept appearing.
Kind of stuff?
Huh?
When you say tagging building,
graffiti.
Oh.
And he kept going before the judge, and finally the judge said to him, because the judge kind of liked him, but he said, why don't you get some canvas? Yeah, exactly. And it's really how it happened. But he did this watch for Swatch when he married a Brazilian girl, was living in Brazil, and had a show at the National Museum. It's the greatest, because we had a picture in the gallery, because we were selling Rembrandts too, right? So the front of the National Museum of Brazil, and there's a big banner, Rascal. And on the other side, Rembrandt. So I tell Rascal, he's not quite in Rembrandt's category yet, but he's...
Wow, this is a fortuitous meeting. May great things happen from all that we're talking about.
Hey, for you too.
Yeah. Well,
I mean...
that thing, this really is like, I'm hearing it. It's one idea. I've been seeing this a long time. How to link all people up under a common vision. Because the whole world, not only do they know Maui and the fire, but they know Mama and Papa. These are things that 30 years ago, when we go to the Cultural Center and we see Pundy, we all have our different stories about Pundy the statue, who was a real man years ago.
Yeah, my wife sat next to him at a dinner for an artist, and she just happened to be sitting next to him. I was next. She didn't even know who he was. After the show, she says, "Oh, that man." My wife's Japanese, and she says, "That man, very nice, very nice." I said, "You don't know who that is, Yoshi?"
Why, rich history, and I'm amazed that you and I had not met.
Yeah,
before
that
now.
is because it's a small island.
Yeah.
It is, but
But I moved out
Truman
of-
Capote had a great line.
Yeah.
He said, "It's always the same 500 people." But.
Yeah, I understand.
You go all over the world, and
I just remember I had remember Great Janes that used to do lunch delivery?
No.
Oh, well, they were up on across from McDonald's. I had a little scooter, and one of my first jobs, fun here, was riding on a scooter and delivering lunch through Lahaina on a scooter.
Oh, wow.
Talk about great memories. I got to know every alley, every side, where the art business guys, and when they came in and left.
Okay, now I'm going to blow your mind. When I got here in '71, there was a marine hardware store right on Front Street, right like across the street from where Chemo's was.
Oh, yeah.
But Chemo's wasn't there yet.
No.
And they were all Okazuya shops. There were no galleries, no jewelry stores, nothing high line. So the streets really gone through a metamorphosis, went through, and then, so much, and the thing about Front Street, which is different than, like, for instance, the mall they built, Lahaina Gateway,
Yeah.
total mistake.
The one in Ghana.
No, because they designed it not that you would ever
Lahaina
walk through the mall from store to store. People have one store to go to. They park in front of it. They go in. They come out. But Front Street was an exception to that because people went and walked the length of Front Street. You know, and I've been saying for years, since I started working, since '93. I've been saying they need to get all the cars off Front Street, turn it into a walking mall, put up, art sculpture on the street,
Turn into a park.
Just the street.
Yeah.
And have some electric vehicles that hold 10 people for people that can't walk, that could jump
Moving
on for free
sidewalk
and
like
just
Vegas.
and drive them down, But open up the street, get the cars off the street, get the fumes. But it never happened, and maybe we were punished. Who knows?
No, I don't know, but
Although I don't think it was God's fault. I think it was the devil that burned Lahaina down. So
I saw something yesterday surprised me. There's a new movie. Santa, if you spell it wrong, is Satan. I thought, well, that was really... how did that happen?
yeah. That's some overactive imagination. But
No, but it's interesting when you look at words and all that way.
the movie I want to see is this movie they made about the first 5 years of Dylan's career.
Coming up with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I don't
right?
know who he is, but
Yeah.
what's it called?
I don't
Oh,
know.
it's a line from his from one of his
one
songs.
of his songs.
Yeah.
But all you have to put in the computer.
It's obviously not memorable because I'm sitting here like a...
Well, but we're going to
dementia
know it
candidate.
once we hear it. It's not blowing in the wind.
No, it's...
It's something. But it's not yet on Netflix or any of those. You got to go to the movie theater and spend 20.
I wonder if it's going to make it to Maui. You think it'll make it to Maui?
Oh, yeah. But now at these big
I
screens
don't go
at
anymore to
home.
the theaters, but I'd go see that one.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Hey, I'll tell you real quick. Nothing to do with what we're talking about. 1962, I was in high school, and I went to it might have been 63, but I went to a Joan Baez concert at the Forest Hills Country Club. She says after a few songs, she says, "I have a special friend I want to bring out. Please be kind to him, Bob Dylan." He sings "It's a Hard Rain Gonna Fall." First, he takes 10 full minutes to get his harmonica thing and tune his guitar. Now, when Joan Baez played, after every song, everybody thunderous applause. Bob Dylan sings "Hard Rain's Gonna Fall," and there's silence. Everybody was no one ever heard a song like that. No one wrote songs like that. And then after about 10, 12 seconds, everybody started clapping. But it changed the world.
Wow.
And later in my life here on Maui, I became friends with Sarah Dillon, who had broken up with Bob. I used to bounce Jacob, her son, who became Wallflowers. He had the group Wall. I used to bounce him on my knee, give him a pony ride. It's just Sarah was a trip, and but I was so influenced by Bob Dylan. I mean, I got to say, and the fact that he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, I think is absolutely was the right
Extraordinary.
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he I had someone I email with all the time recently, and they
By
were
the
saying
way,
I was,
radio listeners, this is Sid Alpert you're listening to.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I guess we're done, huh?
We're almost done. Isn't that amazing? We've been speaking almost an hour. I hope you'll come back.
I didn't tell you about my visit to the mothership.
Please. Which mother?
No, I'm just kidding.
Obviously, we're going to have Sid back, and if he'll come. Except now we're going to learn how to... He's going to teach me how to monetize. Wouldn't that be fun? I love those words, monetize. I've been doing this now 30 years here at Public Access. Someone said, you've been doing all these things for all these years. Either you know who I am or you don't. It's one of those things. It's like it's like you're talking about finding the 60s. This has been such a rich and exciting life on Maui. And it's indescribable. Living here, it isn't like the 60s, but it surely was like the time we've spent here has been just super precious.
And I got to tell you, Jason, I oversteered for getting prepared to come here because I shaved off my beard.
You did? Really?
Yeah.
How big was the beard?
Oh, it was just, I go through, my wife always tells me when it gets to this point, she says, Sid, you got to shave. It's like Saddam Hussein. So I'm in my Saddam Hussein face.
I always thought, why are they having me sing Santa Claus is Coming to Town? Because I look like Santa Claus? It's funny.
Well, this has been fun.
I hope it's been fun. I mean, it's been fun for all of us. Right? You guys can say that. You can't stand up and cheer yet, but I hope that you'll look at dreammaui.com or look on the YouTube and find Dream Maui 1, whatever you want to look. And also Maui Neutral Zone. They all go to the same place, you see, because I'm a holistic guy. It all fits together in one giant
All
pack.
roads lead to Jason.
Well, I call it, this idea about mama is not, how long people call it. It's Jason, the broken record, the broken record. It's the broken record.
You should have set up at Mama's Fish House.
Well, could happen, though. Floyd is gone now.
I know. Do you know that was originally called Wooden Ship's Juice Stand? It was and it said last thing before Hana, and it was true.
We only have 55 seconds. I want you, audience, to welcome him back, make it known, but I don't want to have Sid back. Sid, you've been
Thank
a
you
great
so much.
guest.
I
hope you
enjoyed
had
it.
a good time.
I didn't know what to expect. I've spent a lot of my life on the other side of the microphone. But
well, I'm not sure which side I'm on.
Yeah, I shouldn't say microphone, on the other side of the camera.
Yeah. Well, we have now 30 seconds. It's been a pleasure. Sid Alpert, you're a welcome guest.
Yoshi, I love you if you're listening, even if you're not.
That's wife. Right. You'll listen to the replay. Yeah. You can find it all over. Blessings to you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Can you imagine we're out of there, right? Thank you all for joining us. Aloha. Thank you, Sid.
That was an hour, huh? Wow.